Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome to another session of Azure Power Lunch. And I'm going to share my screen. Uh, Here we go. And today our topic is Azure App Configuration. It's a relatively new service that we're going to talk about. Um, so first of all, as usual, quick blur about myself, and then um, this presentation will be available to download. Um, and you know, look for the link. Either you can go to the website and download it, or if you are on the YouTube channel, look at in the description, and there is a link to the slide deck for download. Okay. Once again, Azure App Configuration Service. So this is provide you a way to centralize configuration management for your applications. That's the goal of this services, and not a single application for all your application needs. Um, this is kind of their goal. It's not only configuration, it's about feature flag, and we will talk about it in a second, why we should use it. So we have modern applications are made up of different components. You have microservices, or even not even microservices, they are different components of the application, and they may be running in heterogeneous environment. Maybe a part would be the web would be Node.js, the middle tier may be ASP.NET Core or Java. There may be some other components which are maybe running on just on VMs, things like that. And those configuration, maybe there is app service. So all of these things will be storing configuration in a different way, like Kubernetes. Maybe storing configuration somewhere else. Some may be using just JSON files, app service you're using, app settings, things like that. So it's very hard to manage when there is like an issue with configuration, or when you're troubleshooting, or let's say when you want to add new feature. Okay, you have to flip flag at 10 different places to set those or enable those feature. What app configuration service allows you to do is it allows you to store all your configuration in a single place. It comes with SDKs built in for ASP.NET, both core and standard, both core and the classic framework, Java, Node.js. And if, let's say, your application is something, a language using a language that is not covered here, you can use the REST API, which is very simple. Since it's just a key value pair that you are retrieving, and the rest is controlled from the side of the um, uh, repository and all, from the portal. So that makes things kind of really, really simple. Okay. So once again, this is kind of the traditional configuration model, all of them storing in their own configuration store. This is what app configuration, Azure App Configuration does for you. Store all of it in a single place where you can control it. What are some of the key features? Um, First of all, as I said, a key value store that it provides you, where you can store your configuration, and you can store your configuration in a hierarchical fashion. Uh, Basically, provide your own hierarchy for your own application. You can use labels, you can use content type, and at the same time, you can replay those settings. So for example, let's say, and up to 30 days. So let's say you had some settings, you changed it, and then you want to go back in time, you can do that as well. So you can basically change the setting, go back and change the settings to a prior date that you know it were working. You can export the settings and then import it under a different label. You can export them and import in a different store in a different region. So you can run this service in different region, and we will talk about the enterprise features of that service as well. It supports managed identities. So if your application is using managed identity, let's say it's app service or AKS or app running in a VM, VM supports managed identity. So you can lock the access level to those managed identities as well. So that allows you to kind of further control access to it. Um, in regards to encryption, it does um, encrypt the data based on customer managed key. So you can either the data will always be encrypted. If you want to encrypt it based on your own key, you can bring your own keys using Key Vault and encrypt that data. And of course, we talked about it. It does support a number of languages and frameworks. So before I move any further, any questions here? Okay. So I'm sure most of you have heard about Azure Key Vault. It's Azure um, uh, way to service to store secrets, certificate, and keys. So yes, it does allow to store that information. So a question come up, okay, why should I not use Key Vault and why I should use this service? Or, I mean, can I store something is in Key Vault and can I use this service? What will be the impact? Like if I will I have to go to two stores? And that's what kind of what Azure App Configuration does is kind of do the best of both worlds. You can store the keys and values in it. And also you can store key value references to a secret stored in the key vault. So let's say that you have a connection string or sensitive information that you don't want to store in a app configuration service. So what you will do is you will store that information into an Azure Key Vault and just store a reference to it in app configuration, and we will look at it in a demo in a second. And that way what will happen is whenever that value is needed, only the reference or pointer is there, it will fetch that value on your behalf from Key Vault. And once again, Key Vault has all that good things in terms of role-based access control and access policy and access through managed identities. So that will make things really simple, where it just takes your identity based on your behalf, get that data from the key vault, get that uh, key value reference from the key vault. So you don't have to kind of go to two different stores. It does it behind the scene on your behalf. Your configuration, you can kind of change it only from a single place called Azure App Configuration. So if there are no questions, let me start with the demo. Okay. So first of all, let's look at the creation experience. So what we can do is we can type in Azure configuration. So this is the creation experience. As you can see, this is kind of a little bit the classic way of doing configuration. You give the resource name, and that can be, and the APL config, something like that. And you can, it's already taken. Okay, two. So we can use Azure internal, and then you have to define a resource group, pretty standard. There are two tiers. One is standard, one is free. You can only create one free tier per subscription. And there are certain limitation in terms of how much how much um, usage you can have in terms of requests and all in this how many requests. So it's going to start throttling if your request count goes above that, how many requests you made for the key value pairs. Just keep in mind those limits will be applicable starting April 1. Standard gives you you know a customer managed key based encryption. It gives you private link, and we will talk about it in a second. I think it also has some higher limits for how much you can use it. So once you provide all that information, what you can do is you can create it, and it will take a few minutes to create it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to I have already have it. So just to save time, let's take a look at an existing app configuration. Okay. So let me cheat sheet. This is the this is the this is how the UI look like. You have the standard affair with overview, access control, IAM, and diagnostics and all. Then let's go down to the operation. This is the heart of the system, which is kind of all the configuration keys. The way you define configuration keys are, so this is where you define the key value pair. So let's say you create, let's look at the key value creation. So you have to define a key name. You can define a flat key name like my app message or something, my app title or something. So this is basically the title of your app, okay? Or what they recommend that you do kind of a hierarchical approach where you give the app name first. So this is going to be, let's say you have a, uh, you know, Contoso app. Then you have the kind of setting. So this is the app setting, the particular uh, uh, setting for your app, and then you have the title. So that's how you break the hierarchy down. That's how you can query the hierarchy. Okay, and then you provide a value, hello world, and then you can use label. So what they recommend they use label for is, for example, that you are applying this label to um, uh, applying this label to for your dev environment, your test environment, and your production environment. So you have different configuration for these. So that's how you assign label. That's how you query. Please note that the content type is not an enforcing type. It is just a metadata. So you can put anything in it. It's not going to enforce the content to match it. It's just going to enforce it enough. It's just going to make you aware that this is the content type. So if you are retrieving this content on the side of your application, you can do something about it. Okay, so let's say if it's a JSON, it's a JSON string, the content type says JSON. So you can basically go in and parse that JSON content into something useful. Okay, or whatever that you can use. So that's that side of thing is. So let's do that. I mean, we can add it, and we can say that this is text. Just put something here, and we say apply, and it's going to add it. By the way, as you can see here, this is, and I have added already a flag, which basically has two labels. One is empty label, which is kind of a journal, and the second one is where I'm using prod. So you can use multiple labels, and that's how you can kind of go through these, these settings, and you can build up those settings. Okay. Um, the way you can apply it, Azure SDK, .NET SDK, .NET Core, and Java both support, all three support dynamic interaction with those settings. So for example, um, let's say I have this service here. Okay, hold on, no, this one. Let's say I have this service here. So what I can do is I can take this web app. So let me just take this web app and let's open it in a browser. So as you can see, this is kind of, using some title, something. So let's see, let's change the title of this app. So what we can do is we can go into the portal. Let's go into the message and let's change it. So let's go in here and change this value, and we call it Azure Power Lunch. So I'm just gonna do apply. And by the way, it takes 30 seconds before those changes takes into effect. So let's go back to our screen and let's do a refresh. And as you can see, this value has changed. So this is dynamically uploading. So what it is doing behind the scene, this SDK has some sort of kind of a event grid mechanism where it is getting the events from that um, kind of subscribing to the events through event grid for this particular app configuration instance. And as those things come in, you can basically make changes. I mean, you can update your configuration, and that's how the data is being shown here. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Hey,
So that.
Navi, just one question on the kind of the HA for this app configuration, because if I'm managing, a lot of configuration for a lot of tier one mission critical apps, what's
Mhm.
the HA story for this, especially if those configs are runtime configs?
Yes, exactly. So right now they don't have what we call GRS kind of thing, like global redundant. What they allow you to do is you can deploy configuration on two regions like East US and West US, and SDKs like both .NET and Java. They support the ability to use multiple kind of multiple app configuration. So one is not available, they're going to get that from the second one. So it is handled at the application level. Let's put it this way, it is handled at the application level, not at the resource level. So hopefully, I think they have in their roadmap at some point doing something in terms of like, built-in redundancy. But at this point, you have to handle it um, at the application level, where it allows you to go to different stores. So you can have a setting. Um, Actually, let me share the code with you. So this is okay. So not good. This is not the right code. This is where I am providing the app config endpoint. You can provide multiple endpoints here. Let's put it this way. So for .NET, for Java, and for .NET Core, and that's how it will go to the first endpoint, and then it will go to the second endpoint if this is not available. Okay, I hope that addresses the question.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the key vault feature. So this is the key vault reference. So here we come in, we say, I want to store a very secret code. And then what I will do is I will go in, I will select my key vault, I will select a secret from the key vault, and I will select whatever version that is available, and I will apply it. Okay, with that, what will happen is it will get that value directly from the key vault at runtime. It will not store the value, it is only storing a pointer to that value here, and then your value will actually come from the key vault itself. Okay, so that's kind of another thing. I mean, let me show you. I already have something like that here. So let's take a look at it, edit, and this is the value that is coming from the key vault. So this is a particular value that we are getting from the key vault. Okay, so with that, I mean, of course, you can select the date, what date you want to search. You can go back up to 30 days. So let's say you change anything between now and 30 days prior, you can get back to that settings. Okay, you can select a key. It supports, the star index. This type of kind of similar to regex that is also supported. You can select a label as well. So let's say you want to select prod label, it will show all the keys that are related to prod. Okay, so that's how it does it. Let's talk about feature manager. So feature manager is something that is um, kind of a built on top of the key value reference. So it allows you to toggle features. So let's say that you have something that you wanna make available. It's already in the code, but you are waiting for some backend enhancements to make it available, or you want to make it available on a particular date. That's what you can do with this feature. So you can define those feature toggles. Both, as I said, .NET, .NET Core, and Java SDK have support for features. So you can, if you have those apps, you can, tie into this and you can get features, make those features available and all that and disable. And that is a very common demand. If you have worked with something called Launch Darkly, it's kind of that feature that is available here. So for example, if you see in this website, there is this beta tab. So what I want to do is I want people to play with this beta tab, and but I have the ability, since it's beta, I should be able to kind of disable it anytime I want. So let's say if I go in here, you say the beta flag, the flag is flipped. By the way, anything that you do here, you can do it from the command line as well, or CLI. So I just disable the flag. Let's go back to this site and let's go to the home page. Let's refresh it. It takes up to 30 seconds for this page to refresh. As you can see, that beta tab or is gone from here. This only home and privacy. So what is happening behind the scene? Once again, this is auto refresh. It refreshes the configuration, and any person who comes in the next time to access the website, they will access it and they will not see the beta tab once you flip that switch. So allows you to enable disable feature. Once again, very similar to key value pair, but it is kind of targeted toward feature management. That's what it allows you to do. So once again, if you are not happy with these features, let's say that you want to do your own eventing and you want to do all of those things, and you say, man, I want to refresh my own configuration based on my own triggers and things like that. It has full support for that. So what it does is you can monitor the events from your configuration using something called event grid. So let's go here. So this is my website. Just want to show it to you. So what I have done is I have tied event grid to this particular source, this particular app configuration. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a change. And this is tied to an event grid subscription. And that event will show up here. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this message. So let me just go in here and I'm going to change it. Okay. And you will see in a, yeah, you see, so this tells you what thing has changed. So once again, so let's say that you are not um, happy with the SDK, or you want to do something different when event comes in, or you want to kind of uh, take some other action, you want to refresh the page automatically or something. This is the way for you to do it. You can tie it into event grid, tie this thing to event grid, get the subscription, and that's how you can do custom things much more than the SDKs may be doing. Okay, so that's the next thing that you can do in terms of eventing. That's how you can extend it. Okay. Any questions while we go over some of the enterprise features?
Naveed, how does it support DevOps? Is it possible to store an
Yeah.
XML file and deploy it?
Yeah. You can actually, you can use DevOps. You can store an XML file in the value. You can, but ideally you want to break down the hierarchy and store that in this thing, and through DevOps. So, I'm doing
My
everything.
point here is I don't want to manually configure the configuration. I want to deploy
Absolutely. Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can, there is a plugin available for Azure DevOps with which you can push configuration into it. How
Hmm.
about that? Okay. In terms of the enterprise features, yes. So it supports private link. So you can connect um, with you can connect with this over a private IP. So you can tie it to a particular private IP address. At that point, all access to app configuration is blocked. So let me show you this. I have this app configuration here. This is this att config. And if I try to access Configuration Explorer, it gives me an error because it is tied to private link to a particular virtual network. And from only I can access it from that virtual network. Okay, so that's and I have a web app running in a VM in that particular virtual network, and I want to show it to you just to kind of compare notes. So this is the web app that is. Oh, I think I did not start it, or something happened to it. Oops, that's not good. Let's see. Hold on a second. That's I thought it was running yesterday, but okay. So I think something happened with this one. So okay, never mind. So by the way, you can only access it from this particular. I mean, from a particular VM or from only from that subnet. That's the only thing you can do. So that's one feature. Of course, we talk about encryption keys, high availability. It is not built in, but you can use the configuration supports access to multiple app configuration stores. And then finally, it supports managed identity and access allows managed identity to access app configuration, which makes things kind of really, really simple in terms of providing access. So with that, any final question? We have 1 more minute. Okay, then I will give everybody their 1 minute back. And with that, oh, by the way, this is how you will do it. This is one diagram, how you will do it in private endpoint. So you have a private endpoint for app config. Your app is running, and it's kind of querying configuration information from that, and then access a privately connected Azure SQL databases from the VNet as well. So this is kind of a quick diagram. So that's how you will use it in a virtual network with a private link. So with that, I hope everybody have a great weekend and see you for another Azure Power Lunch session next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Naveed.